You got to do it. You got to get it done. But it's so important that I have to say this. This should have never happened. When I was president, Iran had no money. They had no money to do that.
We have raised with them the issue of the establishment of a buffer zone, because you've seen the reports that these demolitions might have been to advance a buffer zone.
The worst thing that I can say is this, that many of the charges, false and unfounded, that were leveled against us in The Hague were brought by UNRWA officials.
The neglect by neglect of international engagement by countries that should know better, including the US, has led to a vacuum, and a vacuum is being filled.
We've seen those reports. I don't have a specific comment to provide other than actions speak louder than words. And the statement that's out there, I don't think we could be any more clear that we have called on the Iranian proxy groups to stop their attacks. They have not, and so we will respond in a time and manner of our choosing. When I say actions speak louder than words, there has been 3 attacks to my knowledge since the 28th of January, and I'll just leave it there. Okay.
It is an issue that we raised with the Israeli government. We've raised with them the issue of both the demolition of sites, which they have reported us they have undertaken only when there were sites from which terrorist activities were launched or plotted or being planned, and we have raised with them the issue of the establishment of a buffer zone, because you've seen the reports that these demolitions might have been to advance a buffer zone. I will say, we have made clear to them the same thing that we have said publicly, which is we are opposed to any reduction in the size of the territory of Gaza, and what they have said to us is that they do not intend to occupy Gaza. They do not intend to leave forces there, and we're going to continue to engage with them on this question.
אנחנו היום בבוקר הכנסנו כוח של הימ"מ לתוך בית חולים בג'נין, שבתוכו חוליית מחבלים שמתכננת הוצאת פיגוע קשה להרוג אזרחי ישראל. אנחנו לא רוצים להפוך בתי חולים לזירות לחימה, שמימין יש חולים ומשמאל יש רופאים ואחיות, ובאמצע מחבלים. אבל אנחנו עוד הרבה יותר מזה נחושים לא לאפשר שבתי חולים, לא בעזה, לא ביהודה ושומרון, לא בלבנון, לא מעל הקרקע ולא בפירים למנהרות מתחת לבתי החולים, יהפכו להיות המקום שהוא המחסה לטרור, והוא זה שמאפשר למחבל לצבור את האמל"ח, לנוח, לצאת לעשות פיגוע, ואיפה שצריך אנחנו ניכנס גם למקומות המורכבים ביותר, כדי לחסל שם טרור, כדי לפגוע בטרור, כדי לשבות מחבלים.
South Africa had the temerity to bring us to the ICJ, charging us with genocide against, really in the service of a genocidal organization. Now, the worst thing that I can say is this, that many of the charges, false and unfounded, that were leveled against us in The Hague were brought by UNRWA officials. And we have discovered in the last few weeks that UNRWA officials were complicit in the massacre. And I think it's time that the international community and the UN itself understand that UNRWA's mission has to end. UNRWA is self-perpetuating. It is self-perpetuating also in its desire to keep alive the Palestinian refugee issue. And we need to get other UN agencies and other aid agencies replacing UNRWA if we're going to solve the problem of Gaza as we intend to do.
The Secretary General will meet with 35 member states as well as the European Union this afternoon to discuss the Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA. We expect the Secretary General to brief the member states on the actions being taken to deal with the allegations regarding UNRWA, some UNRWA staff, and he will, of course, listen to their concerns. The Secretary General will again underscore the importance of the humanitarian work that UNRWA does every day in Gaza and in the region. Colleagues, a short while ago, they have yet to receive anything in writing. We've seen, obviously, the reports in the press, but as soon as we've received something, we will act on it, but we have not received it. I think it's important that two things happen at the same time, that we get the facts, that it would be a thorough investigation, an unimpeachable investigation, and also that it be done swiftly to reassure everyone about UNRWA's work. So at this point, I can't give you a target date. As soon as I can, I will. But obviously, they are doing this independently. We want them to do it as quickly as possible, but as efficiently as possible. Every year, UNRWA shares its list of staff with the host countries where it works, right? So UNRWA works in Jordan, works in Lebanon, works in Syria. For the work that it does in Gaza and the West Bank, UNRWA shares the list of staff with both the Palestinian Authority and with the Israeli government as the occupying power for those areas. And as far as I'm told by UNRWA, concerns have not been raised when the list of staff have been shared.
We have provided already in this fiscal year around $121 million to UNRWA. We are the largest donor, or historically every year have been the largest donor to UNRWA in the world. We had remaining about 300,000, a little more than 300,000 in funds that we were planning to provide to UNRWA. That funding has been suspended. That would not be the total of our funding in this fiscal year. We would provide other funding, but it's kind of difficult. It's really impossible to say how much that would be because, as you know, we are operating under a continuing resolution. We don't know how much overall funding will be available for this fiscal year, and that would impact how much that we would be able to provide UNRWA. Historically, we have typically provided somewhere between $300 and $400 million a year in funding.
That we need to see fundamental changes before we can resume providing funding directly to UNRWA. And as you know, we shouldn't let that cloud the great work that UNRWA does. UNRWA has provided essential humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people, and UNRWA is the only organization on the ground that has the capacity to continue to provide that assistance. And their personnel have done extraordinary work. They've literally saved thousands of lives, and it's unfortunate that this information has raised some doubts about UNRWA. And we shouldn't, let me be clear, we shouldn't let this information, these facts, undermine the efforts that UNRWA is making to provide life-saving assistance. We will be meeting with the Secretary General later today as donors to discuss with him the path moving forward. But we want to ensure that humanitarian assistance continues to flow to the Palestinian people. You know, we need to look at the organization, how it operates in Gaza, how they manage their staff, and to ensure that people who commit criminal acts, such as these 12 individuals, are held accountable immediately so that UNRWA can continue the essential work that it is doing.
There's no substitution for the humanitarian role that is played in Gaza. We need to all ramp up, given the totality of needs and the scale and the complexity of the crisis, but there's no substitution. There is no way any organization can replace or substitute the tremendous capacity, the fabric of UNRWA, the ability and their knowledge of the population in Gaza.
I also leave more confident that even as Ukraine strengthens its defenses, Mr. Putin's going to get some nice surprises on the battlefield, and that Ukraine will make some very strong success this year. The days here remain difficult, but we were very pleased to hear today about the new release of some 200 Ukrainian prisoners. We join the people of Ukraine in welcoming them home and honoring their service. Today I had a chance to meet with government leaders to discuss the road ahead in 2024. As you all know, the Biden administration has asked our Congress for another $60 billion to support Ukraine for the coming year. Today we talked about, and bipartisan support for Ukraine remains strong across the country. We continue to provide security support in all categories, including new investments and new weapon systems like the small diameter bomb that is on its way to the front, and to support the regeneration of Ukraine's defense industrial base and our own, to ensure that we can continue to fight against those who would steal our freedom. And they also understand what happens if you cannot continue not only to survive, but to thrive. And so I have great confidence that that understanding will be reflected in the vote that the Congress makes on this request of President Biden.
То, что касается необходимых нам ракет по линии ПВО, там увеличение у нас более чем в 2 раза. И надеюсь, по этому году программа будет выполнена полностью. Плюс к этому мы занимаемся модернизацией ракет. И это должно дать существенную прибавку к тому, что у нас есть на сегодняшний день. Но есть ряд ключевых вопросов, которые нам необходимо решать, и решать достаточно энергично. Это речь идет и о двигателях, речь идет о наладке производства по пусковым установкам.
There's no change to our view that the F-35 program for Turkey is incompatible with their use of the S-300 and S-400 missiles. So we're still having those discussions. And should Turkey be able to resolve our concerns about that, then there could be a restoration of movement into the F-35 program. But that's where we are. There's no change to that.
We want this to be a peaceful blue continent, so to speak. It covers a massive part of the world. We believe that the neglect by neglect of international engagement by countries that should know better, including the US, has led to a vacuum, and the vacuum is being filled. Our job is to alert them to the importance in their own interest and all our interests of ensuring that we work alongside the island's nations for peaceful outcomes. No, I don't think they do enough now. I think they have to understand with greater intensity. They've certainly upped the game, but they need to, I think, work with greater intensity on the immediate problems at the ground level of many of the island nations. Well, the realism of it all is that Pillar 2 is the examination we are going to look at beginning tonight and tomorrow, and going forward. And taking some glorified isolationist stance in this new environment is not in our national interests. We're doing it for peaceful purposes.
Well, thank you very much. We had a very strong meeting with the Teamsters. Over the years, I've employed thousands and thousands of Teamsters, and they've done a great job, especially in New York, where we have a lot of unions. I've had great relationships with the unions. We're with Sean O'Brien, as you know, and Fred Zuckerman, and they're terrific people, great leaders, actually. And I think we had a very productive meeting. Stranger things have happened. Usually a Republican wouldn't get that endorsement. For many, many years, they only do Democrats, but in my case it's different because I've employed thousands of Teamsters, and I thought we should come over and pay our respects. And as you know, a big part of the voting bloc votes for me, a very big part. Some people say more than 50%. Nobody knows what the exact number is, but some people say more than 50% of the Teamsters vote for me. So we had a very, very productive meeting, I think, with a lot of Teamster representatives upstairs, okay? Because we had the safest border ever, and now we have the worst border ever. And I mean anywhere. There's never been a border like this ever in the world, what's happening at our border. And I hope the Republicans don't, and the Democrats don't make a bad border deal, because a bad border deal would be worse than no deal at all. You don't need a deal to tighten up the border and to make it secure. I had the most secure border in history. I didn't have a deal. I didn't have a bill. I said, no people are coming in. No drugs are coming in. We don't want to have human trafficking, which nobody even talks about. If it's not going to be good, if it's not going to solve the border problem, don't do the bill. And that was very important to me. And a lot of people do call me, they respect me, and they say, what do you think? If the bill's not going to be a great bill and really solve the problem, I wouldn't do it at all. Not for political reasons, just for U.S. reasons. We just had a meeting with the Teamsters, and one of the biggest problems they have is millions of people are pouring into the country. And that's a killer for the Teamsters, and I'm going to stop it. And that's why the Teamsters, I think, support me. Now, I don't know if the top people will support me. We're going to have to find that out. But within the union itself, I have tremendous support. Well, the first thing you do is you don't say what you're going to do. And he shouldn't be saying what he's doing. He says, well, we're thinking about doing something. You got to do it. You got to get it done. But it's so important that I have to say this. This should have never happened. When I was president, Iran had no money. They had no money to do. I would block it. I think it's a horrible thing. When Japan buys U.S. steel, I would block it instantaneously, absolutely.
Вот здесь вот стоят коробки, в которых 105 тысяч подписей граждан России, подчеркиваю, собранные на территории Российской Федерации, потому что еще за нас многие десятки тысяч людей подписались за пределами России, граждан России. Мы эти подписи сюда не принесли, но мы их отдельно пересчитали. Я хочу сказать огромное спасибо тем десяткам тысяч людей, которые донатили, жертвовали на наш официальный избирательный счет. Никогда в истории России не было такого, чтобы кампания кандидатов в президенты шла полностью на пожертвование обычных людей. 2 месяца назад написал текст, называется «Манифест надежды». 2 месяца назад, даже раньше, уже 3 почти, это октябрь был. Он начинается буквально со следующими словами. «Я иду на выборы как принципиальный противник политики действующего президента». Да? Начав специальную военную операцию, Путин совершил фатальную ошибку. Это там написано просто, понимаете? Вот ответ.
Et en effet, on doit au niveau européen avoir une politique qui est cohérente avec cette souveraineté alimentaire que nous défendons. C'est aussi pour ça que je verrai la présidente de la Commission jeudi, parce qu'on a demandé des choses très concrètes pour nos agriculteurs. 1, d'avoir des mesures claires sur les importations venant d'Ukraine, car on a aujourd'hui en volume et en qualité des choses qui déstabilisent le marché européen, qu'il s'agisse des poulets comme des céréales. 2, d'avoir une clarté sur le Mercosur. Nous souhaitons, nous demandons à ce que l'accord là tel qu'il est en place ne soit pas signé. Écoutez, sans politique agricole commune, nos agriculteurs n'auraient pas de revenus. Pour beaucoup d'entre eux, ils ne pourraient pas vivre. Et donc j'entends beaucoup de choses, mais il faut restaurer la vérité. Nous avons une politique européenne forte, qui permet d'ailleurs et qui est un soutien très important aux revenus de nos agriculteurs. Et quand on regarde les choses, les fruits et légumes, le maraîchage, la viticulture dans certaines régions, je pense en particulier l'Hérault, le Gard, l'élevage, la volaille, ont connu des difficultés ces derniers mois. Mais je pense que ce serait de la facilité de tout mettre sur le dos de l'Europe. Ces difficultés, elles sont parfois conjoncturelles, d'autres fois structurelles. Nous allons continuer le travail pour vérifier et utiliser nos lois pleinement, pour protéger les agriculteurs, les transformateurs aussi, et faire que tout cela soit juste dans les négociations. Il faudra aussi que ce soit un débat européen, car il ne vous a pas échappé que certains de nos distributeurs ont organisé par des grandes centrales européennes le contournement de la loi française. La solution, c'est pas moins d'Europe, c'est parfois plus d'Europe.